WNBA players are divided over CBA approach at heated meeting. Agents are asking for coordinated communication with the WNBA and CBA talks. Notably, there's an unprecedented level of unity among agents at this moment.
For the first time in its 30-year history, the WNBA faces a potential work stoppage driven by the players themselves. A critical deadline is set for March 10th. If a new collective bargaining agreement is not reached by that date, the 2026 season faces significant disruption, potentially leading to a total collapse of the schedule. Behind the scenes, the unity typically associated with the league is fracturing. Reports indicate high levels of tension during internal meetings. Even as public interest in the sport reaches record highs, the situation has escalated to the point where 10 of the industry's most prominent agents, representing stars like Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Angel Reese, have sent a formal letter to the players' union. These agents are demanding coordinated communication and direct access to the league's proposals. They have expressed concern that union leadership may not be fully transparent with the players, and they fear their clients are being led toward a precarious financial position. This tension stems from a recent virtual meeting where the atmosphere was described by participants as contentious.
The WNBA held a virtual meeting. The tone quickly became tense as players discussed the best path forward. One of the causes of disagreement between players, according to multiple sources, is the approach to a potential strike.
While Union Executive Director Terry Carmichael Jackson characterized the session as spirited, insiders suggest the internal divide is deepening. In December, 98% of players voted to authorize a strike, but that solidarity is now being tested as the March deadline approaches. While a portion of the leadership remains prepared to walk out, a growing number of players are concerned about the personal financial consequences of a strike. The core of the dispute lies in the revenue-sharing model. Players are seeking 27.5% of gross revenue, which accounts for total income before any expenses are deducted. The league has countered with an offer of 70% of net revenue. However, the union contends that after the league deducts various operating costs, that 70% figure would actually represent less than 15% of total revenue. The league has dismissed the players' proposal as unrealistic, claiming it would result in losses totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. A significant divide is also emerging between the league's elite stars and its middle-class players. High-profile athletes often have external income from endorsements or alternative leagues, allowing them the financial flexibility to endure a work stoppage. Conversely, younger players or those on the roster bubble face the risk of career-ending financial instability if the season is canceled. While veterans urge the membership to remain firm, those in the lower salary tiers face the reality of lost wages they cannot easily replace. The logistical timeline is equally tight. Even if an agreement is reached by March 10th, the league would need to conduct expansion drafts for Portland and Toronto, the standard WNBA draft, and an intensive free agency period within a few weeks. Current proposals suggest a free agency window of only 7 days before training camp begins. This condensed schedule raises concerns about the quality of the on-court product and the ability of players to relocate and prepare for the season in such a short time frame. Negotiations are further complicated by reports that the league may seek to limit teams to a single maximum contract player. Such a change would fundamentally alter the current landscape of the league, potentially forcing organizations like the Las Vegas Aces or the Indiana Fever to dismantle their core rosters. This proposed shift in salary structure remains a primary point of contention for the agents representing the league's top talent. The outcome of these negotiations will likely define the trajectory of women's professional sports for the next decade. While the proposed deal offers significant immediate raises with maximum contracts potentially reaching $1.3 million, players must weigh those gains against a revenue-sharing system they find fundamentally flawed. With only days remaining, the players must decide whether to prioritize immediate financial security or long-term structural influence. The current media rights environment complicates these negotiations further, as the league recently secured an 11-year broadcasting deal valued at approximately $2.2 billion. While this represents a historic increase in revenue, the players' union argues that the deal was undervalued based on current viewership trends and the influx of new fans. The disagreement centers on whether the league should have negotiated shorter-term contracts to allow for more frequent market adjustments. By locking into an 11-year cycle, the union fears that player salaries will remain stagnant relative to the explosive growth of the sport's popularity. The league, however, maintains that long-term stability was necessary to secure the foundational investments required for expansion and infrastructure. The logistics of adding new franchises in Portland and Toronto add another layer of financial pressure. These expansion teams are expected to pay significant entry fees, yet the union remains concerned that these funds will be used to offset existing league debts rather than being reinvested into player compensation. For a new team to be viable by 2026, the league must begin the process of hiring coaching staffs, securing arena dates, and launching marketing campaigns within the next few months. A strike or a delayed season would jeopardize the inaugural seasons of these franchises, potentially alienating two of the league's most promising new markets before a single game is played. The rise of alternative domestic options, such as the unrivaled 3-on-3 league and various off-season initiatives, has shifted the leverage in favor of top-tier talent. These leagues provide an avenue for players to earn significant income without the physical toll of a traditional 40-game overseas season. However, the WNBA's prioritization rule remains a major sticking point. This rule requires players to return from overseas or independent league commitments by the start of training camp or face heavy fines and eventual suspension. Players argue that this restriction limits their earning potential, while the league insists it is necessary to ensure the professional standards and marketing consistency of the WNBA product. The financial debate also extends to the hard cap versus soft cap salary structure. The WNBA currently operates under a hard salary cap, meaning teams have no flexibility to exceed their spending limit even if they are willing to pay a luxury tax. This system prevents the formation of super teams through traditional spending, but also limits the ability of teams to retain their own drafted talent as player valuations rise. The union is pushing for a soft cap model, similar to the NBA, which would allow franchises to exceed the limit to keep veteran players. The league has resisted this, citing the need for competitive balance among its 12 and soon 14 teams. Beyond the core salary figures, the union is demanding improvements to the daily lived experience of the players. This includes a permanent commitment to charter flights for all regular and postseason games. While the league began providing charter flights recently, the players want this benefit codified in the collective bargaining agreement to prevent it from being revoked during future economic downturns. Additionally, there are calls for increased investments in practice facilities. Currently, several teams share facilities with colleges or public recreation centers, which limits player access for training and recovery. The union argues that as a multi-billion-dollar entity, the league must mandate that every franchise provides a dedicated professional-grade training environment. The role of the NBA in these negotiations cannot be overlooked. As a part owner of the WNBA, the NBA provides significant financial backing and administrative support. Some players feel that the NBA's influence has kept the WNBA in a state of managed growth rather than allowing it to aggressively pursue its own independent commercial interests. There is a growing movement within the union to seek a more autonomous financial structure, one that is less dependent on the NBA's subsidization, but also less restricted by its conservative fiscal policies. This tension is particularly evident in discussions regarding the league's expansion of the pie, where players want a more direct say in how the league is marketed and which brands are brought on as primary sponsors. The middle class of the league, players who earn between $70,000 and $120,000, are the most vulnerable in this standoff. For these athletes, the cost of living in major markets like New York, Los Angeles, or Seattle often exceeds their take-home pay after taxes and agent fees. The union is advocating for a significant increase in the league's housing stipend, which has not kept pace with the rising real estate costs in these cities. If a strike occurs, these players lack the endorsement deals and social media revenue streams that the league's stars rely on. The fear of a lost year is palpable among third- and fourth-year players who are just beginning to establish their professional footprints. Medical benefits and post-career transitions are also central to the union's proposal. The players are seeking expanded mental health resources and more comprehensive maternity and family planning benefits. As the average career length in the WNBA increases, more players are balancing professional competition with motherhood. The union wants guaranteed paid maternity leave and travel stipends for childcare providers, arguing that these are essential components of a modern professional sports league. Furthermore, the players are asking for a more robust pension plan and health insurance coverage that extends beyond their active playing years, citing the long-term physical toll of professional basketball. The league's counterargument focuses on the reality of current operating losses. Despite the surge in interest, many franchises still report annual deficits when accounting for the massive increases in travel costs, marketing, and front office expansion. The league warns that meeting the union's demands for 27.5% of gross revenue would force some franchises into a position where they can no longer meet their financial obligations. They characterize the players' demands as aspirational rather than grounded in the current economic reality of the league. The standoff is essentially a debate over whether the WNBA should be treated as a struggling startup or an established high-value asset. As the March 10th deadline approaches, the possibility of a lockout where the league proactively prevents players from working remains a tactical option for the owners. This would freeze all league activities, including the draft and free agency, effectively forcing the players to accept a deal or lose their entire 2026 salaries. The agent's recent letter to the union indicates a lack of confidence that the current leadership is prepared for this level of escalation. The agents are pushing for a more pragmatic approach, suggesting that a partial win now is better than a total loss later. This internal friction within the players' camp may give the league more leverage in the final days of negotiations. The impact of this dispute reaches far beyond the United States. International players who make up a significant portion of the league's talent pool are watching the negotiations closely. A strike would likely cause a massive influx of talent into the EuroLeague and Chinese leagues, potentially altering the global balance of women's basketball. However, the recent geopolitical instability in some of these regions has made overseas play less attractive than it once was. For many international stars, the WNBA is not just a place to play, it is the primary source of their professional identity and commercial visibility. In the locker rooms, the conversation has turned toward the long-term legacy of this fight. Veterans who remember the league's lean years are often the most vocal about holding the line, believing that they owe it to future generations to secure a fair share of the league's new wealth. Younger players, many of whom entered the league during the current boom period, are more focused on immediate compensation and the opportunity to capitalize on their current fame. Bridging this generational gap is one of the union's most difficult tasks. If the stars and the bench players cannot find common ground, the league may be able to divide and conquer during the final stages of the bargaining process. The specific language regarding net versus gross revenue remains the most technical and most contentious part of the document. The union's auditors have requested more transparency regarding the league's shared expenses, which include the costs of centralized marketing and the salaries of league office employees. The players believe these costs are being artificially inflated to reduce the net revenue pool. The league maintains that its accounting practices are standard for the industry and that the players are underestimating the sheer cost of running a professional sports league on a national scale. This fundamental disagreement over the math makes a compromise difficult to reach without a full, independent audit of the league's books. If no deal is reached, the WNBA draft scheduled for April would be the first major casualty. This event is a cornerstone of the league's marketing calendar and a life-changing moment for collegiate athletes. A canceled or delayed draft would leave the top college prospects in a state of limbo, unsure of when or if they will begin their professional careers. This uncertainty could lead some players to return to college for a fifth year using their remaining eligibility, further complicating the talent pipeline for the WNBA. The ripple effects of a 2026 work stoppage would be felt in the college game, the international market, and the grassroots level for years to come. The proposed one-max player rule is viewed by many as a direct response to the Las Vegas Aces' recent dominance. The league argues that by limiting the number of superstars on a single roster, they can ensure that every team has a chance to compete, which in turn increases television ratings and ticket sales across all markets. The union, however, views this as a punishment for success and a violation of the players' right to choose where they work. They argue that super teams have been a primary driver of fan engagement and that forcing stars to split up would diminish the overall quality of the game. The timeline for a potential resolution is shrinking every hour. The agent's demand for coordinated communication suggests that the union may be forced to change its negotiating strategy in the coming days. If the agents take a more direct role in the process, the focus may shift toward a shorter-term bridge agreement that allows the 2026 season to proceed, while leaving the more complex revenue-sharing questions for a later date. This would provide immediate stability, but would also mean that the league and the players will find themselves back in this same position in just a few years. Ultimately, the dispute is a symptom of the WNBA's success. 10 years ago, the league was fighting for survival. Today, it is fighting over how to divide billions of dollars. Boy, the stakes have never been higher, and the margin for error has never been smaller. Both sides understand that a work stoppage at this moment of peak popularity could be catastrophic for the league's brand. Yet both sides also believe that the terms of this deal will set the precedent for the next 30 years. The question of whether to prioritize current wealth or future power remains the central tension that will determine the fate of the 2026 season and the future of the league.